New show, Who Dis? Hey there, friends and neighbors. Hey there, listeners. I'm Matt Silverman, coming to you on all the feeds, all the places, coming to you with some nervousness, perhaps, because I am going to attempt to speak to a variety of different audiences, people who are already subscribed to this podcast feed that they know and love, and people who might be watching a video version of this. I will explain what I mean in a moment. And people who might be coming to this corner of the internet for the first time, and they have no idea what the hell is going on. But for most of you, you know me as the producer of Two Girls, One Podcast, which in preparation for this, I kind of scrolled on back through the feed and realized that we have been making that show for 7 years and nearly 300 episodes. It's been an amazing ride. We're immensely proud of the show. And I am here to reveal and share and announce a big, significant change, a transformation, if you will. And I'll back up by explaining that if you're a longtime listener or a recent regular listener, you know that the show has been on hiatus for a couple months now. It's been some time, and that is due to a variety of reasons. One is that making the show became complex and time consuming, especially because we separated from the media company, which is the Daily Dot that I used to work for. And we went independent because they unfortunately just never found a way to make use of the show as like a vehicle for revenue or brand building. They just did not invest any marketing muscle into it. And that is fine. But they were paying us to make the show for many years and then stopped doing that, which made sense for them. And we went out on our own, and that was awesome. I mean, it was not awesome because we were making less money, but it was cool because they graciously said, "Hey, we're not making use of this show." But instead of just kind of like owning it and canceling it or closing it, they allowed us to continue making it independently, which was awesome. But that also means a lot less revenue, a lot less money to go around to me, Allie, and Lindsay, of course. And so coordinating the schedules of three busy people and who live in different time zones, and also a fourth potentially busy person, a guest who perhaps lives anywhere in the world, Australia, Asia, Africa, wherever, Europe, or somewhere in the US. Like we obviously, if you're a listener, we interview people from all walks of life across the internet and across the world, and so that became so arduous and complicated just to get the show booked. And then on top of that, because there was not enough revenue to really for the show to be a focal point for any one of us, and we're very busy and scheduling and editing and fixing and booking and whatever. Like, it became a lot of work for not enough return. The show is very healthy, but it doesn't command revenue the way it used to. And so splitting that meager revenue among three people who were, continued to be difficult to pin down, just was like, hey, we got to rethink this. We have to reformat or simplify. And we had been doing that. But then, as you probably know, if you're a listener or subscribe to the Patreon, Allie's living situation just it shit the bed. She had a leak in her apartment, which then became an issue where they had to condemn the building or whatever, or refurbish the building, what have you. And they were like, "You can't live here anymore," and booted her out. So she was essentially like homeless, not living on the street or anything like that, but like living with friends or family or bouncing around to different locations while she was figuring out a stable place to live and move her stuff. And we said, look, that is a top priority. Like, you should not be stressing about the show. You should be working on getting your living situation as stable as possible. So we put the show on hiatus, as you probably know. And as we were on pause and paused Patreon and paused production, we, continued doing our other projects and work and et cetera. And at some point kind of regrouped and said, hey, like, is this really working? Is this going to work for us going forward economically or career-wise, et cetera? And we came to the conclusion that after 7 years and 300 episodes that we're incredibly proud of, it just doesn't. There's not enough there for 3 people to split in terms of workload and revenue, et cetera. But what we did, we agreed to wind the show down, which is what I'm here to announce. But also, what we didn't want to happen is like you, the audience, who are incredibly supportive, incredibly loyal. We have a wonderful community of listeners, and it would be just tragic, just shitty if we said that's it and we just stopped and let the feed, accumulate dust until the end of the internet or the heat death of the sun or whatever comes first, right? So I said, look, there is a world where if I can just do everything and engineer and book and edit and be the host as one person instead of 3 person, there is an economic world where that actually makes sense because it just streamlines and simplifies and kind of it just reduces the scope of the show, but also allows, hopefully, we'll talk about this in a second, hopefully allows me to bring a similar value, a show that you will hopefully still enjoy going forward. So what I'm here to share with you is that the Two Girls brand belongs to Ali and maybe Jen, so that is their thing. They made a web series, which is ostensibly like a sitcom, a TV show, which came out excellent. That was like the beginning of the Two Girls. It was Two Girls, One Show. And then we sort of built off that as Two Girls, One Podcast. So that as like an IP is theirs, obviously. And so Allie will. I don't know what she will do with it. She might morph that into something else 5 years from now. Who can say? But all I can say is that I'm here and I'm thrilled to be continuing this show, but as a new show. And so I'm thrilled to share and announce and whatever and nervously say to you that this feed will go forward as a show that I'm calling Influence. And it will be focused on creativity on the internet and how people, creators, use their thing, whatever they are exceedingly passionate about or skilled at, to turn their passion into a living or a community or a social movement or some sort of impact on the internet. And, I know the term influencer it has baggage, it has complexity, it is, in a mainstream coverage sense, it's like, you think about like a fashion influencer and products and whatever, but like we are talking about regular people who are very talented or skilled, who command the attention of audiences that rival and often surpass traditional broadcast mainstream media. Thousands and millions of people are hanging on the every word of people on the internet. They're supporting them financially, and they are, connected to them deeply in a social, parasocial way through community that blows like the Super Bowl or broadcast television or radio out of the water. And I have been obsessed with that concept for forever. And in my professional life, I've been covering that culture for like 15 years now. I had to look back and realize, when I got my start, writing and editing and eventually producing videos and podcasts about the internet. And I'm also obsessed with this idea that like millions of dollars still get poured into traditional media channels, even when they are dying and shrinking compared to internet creators who, in many cases, can barely make a living with the economics of the internet and the economics of advertising on the internet, which are, I'm sure you can glean if you're not in the biz. They're just stupid. That's like you're reaching millions of people, and your advertising rates are awful. Like making a living on advertising alone is rare, I would say. And digital media companies and publishers are struggling with this. Creators struggle with it. However, the maturation of social media platforms and also like fan funding platforms like Patreon, Kickstarter, merchandise platforms of like, hey, I'm going to bring you this content or this value for free or in some limited form, but if you want to support this endeavor, you can kick me a buck on Patreon. Like that was a paradigm shift in the economics of the internet, and I'm so thrilled and I would say optimistic. Like there's a lot to be pessimistic about the state of the web and especially the state of for-profit social media, because all that revenue flows up to Facebook, Meta, Google, TikTok, whatever. Except that the people who make all the content that make those platforms valuable are working their asses off and getting almost nothing in return unless they can kind of turn on their business sense to activate their amazing communities to support them and make a livings. And I'm also fascinated with the idea that there are thousands of channels, YouTube channels, podcasts, Instagram accounts that have thousands and millions of followers, and they are dormant or stuck because the person who is immensely skilled or talented at whatever they do is not a business person. So they couldn't figure out how to make a real living on the internet. And that's tragic and fascinating and interesting. So what I'm saying is this new show, which I'm calling Influence, will be squarely adjacent, and there's a Venn diagram where it crosses over deeply with the editorial philosophy of Two Girls One Podcast. But it will be different. I'm sure it will have a different vibe. It will just be me, and I will be reaching out to creators and influencers that I know personally, that I've worked with, but also people that I'm a fan of who I don't know. And I'll just hopefully say, like, I think whatever you're doing is so cool and interesting. I want to talk with you about it and share your work with with my audience. And then also, what's very important to me is to reach out and expand out to creator cultures and internet communities that I'm an alien to. Like I don't know about cooking channels. Like I don't care. Not that I don't care about cooking or food, but like I'm not in it the way food people are in it, or I don't know, there are YouTube channels about, Notion, or what's the other one? Airtable, where it's like, we're going to engineer all these like cool templates and build things for your business. And these people are like geniuses who like have built out huge businesses on about specific software, or about, drum lesson, whatever it is. I want to build a show around any fandom, any community, any value that someone or some team is building. And again, it doesn't have to be necessarily like I'm an influencer with a business. It can be a nonprofit. It can be social. It could be a fandom that, as we've covered countless times before. I just want to know how it works. How did this get built, and how is it sustainable? How are you avoiding getting burnt out or discouraged or whatever? Because it's a lot of work. For every stride we've made where it's like, hey, with an iPhone and an internet connection, I can turn on and reach more people than the movies and TV. Like, that's the story of our time. That's incredible. And yet everyone is doing that, so we are awash in noise. And how can you actually establish a credible brand, business, identity, community? That is what I have been curious and obsessed with for my entire career covering the internet. I've also done it a little bit. Like, I work with those creators. They are my clients. I have, as an employee of media companies previously, I have often pushed those companies toward a sort of, you need to have faces and voices on microphone, on camera, because people want to subscribe to people. They don't necessarily want to subscribe to brands or text or articles the same way we did in the 20th century when we bought newspapers. Like, that's complicated, but like, the I observed YouTubers creating loyalty around their content like never before in 2010, 2011, and was observing the companies I worked for like getting lots of page views, but not being able to like sell merch or sell branded content the way that influencers were. And many media companies have done it, and we did it to an extent. But my point is, I consider myself a student of that philosophy, and view it as an extraordinarily durable business brand strategy in a world where the internet completely changes every 2 years, and where we are at the mercy of social platforms that, TikTok being truly a prime example of like, hey, I made 3 TikToks and I got 10,000 views. This is awesome. And then a flip, a switch flips on the back end of a platform, and all of a sudden, this like fame that you thought you had is gone. And how do you reckon with that? In the shifting sands of for-profit algorithmic social media, and is a 1-to-1 podcast, Patreon subscription. I always want to get the thing from this creator, no matter what algorithms I'm scrolling. The audience member, always come back to get the latest thing from this person that I love, and financially support in some way, merch, Patreon, just listening, watching through ads, whatever it is. That is stronger than ever, but also more complicated than ever. And I want to continue talking to and learning from those amazing people. So, Influence is the new show. I am excited about it. I am nervous about it, and I wanted to share sort of a few of the changes and logistics that I'm thinking about. So first and foremost, if you're listening to this in whatever podcast feed not podcast feed, whatever app you consume podcasts in, and whatever you've been subscribed to 2G1P in, nothing changes. You don't have to do anything. The feed will turn from 2G1P into Influence, and there will be a new logo and a new title and a new description. So as you're opening your podcast app, wherever 2G1P was in your feed, it will now be this show, and you're already subscribed. So I do hope that you continue to listen and check out what I have in store. I already have some pretty awesome guests lined up, and I'm excited to share those with you very shortly. So you don't have to do anything. If you are subscribed to the Patreon, then you also don't have to do anything or go anywhere or change anything. As you hopefully know, while we've been on hiatus, the Patreon has been fully paused. So you have not been charged for anything. Obviously, we have not been making anything. So that remains on pause until the new show kind of launches with its first episode. So stand by there, and URLs and logos and titles and everything will change, but you'll already be there. So that's great. Same with Discord. If you're in our Discord, and I hope you will consider joining. That will be updated, and you'll already be there. What is sort of being added on to this is a brand new YouTube channel. So perhaps you are listening to this in your podcast app, or perhaps I have noted or directed you to this new channel, which is starting from scratch. And so I'll explain the reason for that and an ask of you if you can. In my work as consultant, freelancer, strategist for other podcasters and video creators, I and the industry has observed that YouTube has become the number one destination for podcasts. It has surpassed Apple and Spotify recently in the last 6 months to a year as the big dog in podcast consumption. And that is quite mind-blowing, actually, from my perspective. And the reason is because users were already sort of doing that, and YouTube, the company, kind of seized on that and really pushed and paid big-time podcast creators to make sure that their podcast was publishing to all the platforms and then also to YouTube sort of day and date or the same week, and encouraging them financially or otherwise to make video versions of their podcast. And that could be just like a talking head, which is what you're seeing now if you're watching it, or if their show was more sort of dynamically produced, just create some sort of animation or card or whatever so that the podcast could still be viewable, listenable on YouTube in the same way it was accessible on a podcast app. And clearly the user behavior was like, hey, everyone already uses YouTube. Everyone on the earth uses YouTube in some way. And many people use it for music, and many people use it for podcasts, and they're just opening a tab and listening, or they're putting it on their phone and then listening, or maybe they're subscribed to YouTube Premium, where you can start a video and close your phone and listen to it like a podcast. And because it is open and accessible, that user behavior is very valuable for podcast listeners. But more importantly, and this is sort of from the strategic side of things, as a podcast listener, you probably perceive how challenging it is for audio to move around the internet. And the best way to transmit a podcast from one listener to another is word of mouth. It is like, hey, I love this show about movies, and you're a movie buff. You're my friend. You got to listen to episode 14 of this awesome show. You'll love it. Here's 2 hours of some people you don't know talking about movies. that's a huge ask of your friend or family member or colleague to invest in that. So maybe they'll do that, and maybe they will get hooked or become interested in that podcast, but it will take them some time. The chances of them liking the hosts may, or they may not click with it, and so it's like that transmission is like slow and arduous. But when it clicks, it's like a deep loyalty. It's like, oh my god, this podcast! I didn't know I needed this podcast. It's so great. We've all experienced that, right? But where YouTube comes in and changes everything is that YouTube and Google already knows everything you're interested in. So if I watch a video about movies on YouTube, then YouTube is going to suggest, it's called the browse feature or whatever, it's recommending 7 other videos about movies or the genre of movies or about, critical discussion of movies in the sidebar or after the video plays. And now many of those could be episodes of that podcast. And so that is a way to, with sort of compelling thumbnails and compelling titles and interesting hooks, you are now like, oh, wait, I do like, A24 movies about, I don't know, heartbreak or whatever. And so I'm like, oh, what's this video? And I click on it and it's a podcast, but it is hyper targeted to something that I'm fascinated with. So I click on it, I watch it. I watch most of it or I listen to a lot of it and I like the video, or maybe I subscribe to that channel. And now that video is algorithmically supercharged to be like, okay, YouTube now knows that people who like video A also like podcast B. So now it's going to start serving it to 1,000 more people, and it's going to start serving it to 5,000 more people and 10,000 more people. And all of a sudden that slow, like, hey, maybe you'd like this podcast, one human to one human, slow-mo mode becomes turbocharged by algorithms serving it to 10,000, 50,000, 100,000 people. And maybe only 1,000 of those 50,000 people will actually engage with that podcast video, but that's 1,000 new listeners in the course of an algorithmic week or month or whatever. And so I'm saying that to explain, like, that has been a big part of my job with a variety of clients and notable podcasters over the last year. And it works crazy well. And we have sat in meetings with YouTube, the company, being like, it's not about clickbait. It's about capturing attention of audiences who don't know they need your podcast. But when they discover it and when they watch it and enjoy it, then that turbocharges it. So it is making good on the compelling nature of the title and thumbnail. If your title and thumbnail doesn't match the content, or it hypes it up and the video is disappointing, the video will not be, YouTube will know that you're like, this sucks, and you clicked out, and YouTube will know that's not a good video, and it will stop serving it to people. So the point is, responsible optimization and compelling headlines and thumbnails, which has been part of my job and business as part of media companies for 10, 15 years now, whatever it's been. That's the game. And so I knew that if I was going to grow the show beyond its core listening audience, which is you. If you're listening to this right now, you have been with us for some time. But in order to grow the show and make it a thing, make it a real thing beyond the audience we already have, YouTube strategy is key. So all that. So I wanted to peel back the curtain and give you a little insight into like what that is all about. And perhaps you are looking at the channel or you are watching this as a YouTube video now. And my ask of you is to say, look, if you're like an audio only listener, as I am. Like I listen to podcasts on my phone in podcast apps while I'm doing other things. I'm not watching podcasts. So even if that is you, I get it. But if you can, hop over to the YouTube channel and at least subscribe to the channel, because I'm starting the channel fresh. I didn't want 2G1P did not have an existing YouTube channel, and I don't want to use my own channel because that's my channel. That's where I watch YouTube videos. I want this to be its own thing. But I need 1,000 subscribers in order to have the channel be partnered with YouTube and access additional features. Part of that is monetization, but part of that is like additional features that are only offered to partnered channels. So if you don't mind, and I've got my cheat sheet here, youtube.com/@influence podcast. Again, that's youtube.com/@influence podcast. I'll put that in the show notes as well, so you don't have to type it or hunt for it. Even if you're not a YouTube podcast person, it would be awesome for you to hop on over to the channel and subscribe, just so that we can reach those goals. Thank you so much for considering that. And so here is an update on the Patreon. So I want the Patreon to be a one-stop shop for updates, new episodes about the show. Like I want, if you are subscribed to the Patreon financially, or even just, you can also just subscribe and get updates in your inbox, or sort of like newsletter style. I want that to always be a place where you're getting constant information about upcoming guests, new episodes, updates from me, whatever, surveys, polls, calls to action, whatever. Hey, submit questions for the guest, whatever. So if you're subscribed to that Patreon, you will already be there. Nothing will change. The logo and the title and the graphics will change. But in terms of financial subscriptions, I'm going to be changing it to 3 different tiers with different perks. And I want you to be a part of the discussion of like, what do you want? What is interesting to you from a Patreon subscription? So here's how I'm thinking about it, and we can keep talking about it. Tier 1 is going to be $1. And this is a tier for people like me, because I really like to spread my Patreon creator money around to many different creators, podcasters, YouTubers that I really love. And I just want them to exist and keep making the content I love. I don't need perks or ad-free episodes or what have you. But I want to spread the money around to lots of creators. I can't give $10 to 30 creators, but I can give $1 or $2 to 30 different creators that I love. So if you just want to support the show financially in a small way, that's an option for you. And I don't know what the perk would be, other than like, thank you so much and thank you for making the show possible. And that I wanted to offer that as an option. Tier 2 will be transitioning to $4, and that would give you ad-free episodes that you can access through Patreon. So I think there's a way to download the MP3s directly from Patreon if you want to do that. But also, Patreon will generate an RSS feed without ads, so that you can get it. You can just add that. You can unlock that perk and add the RSS to your podcast player of choice. I also think there could be some sort of bonus content on that feed, and I just don't know what it is. I don't know if I'll have the bandwidth to do something else on top of a weekly interview show, but we'll see. I would be curious to hear what you would be interested in. Maybe it's just a chat show where it's just me hanging out with questions from you, or discussing the latest Discord chatter, or maybe discussing, I don't know, news items in the internet tech creator space. I'm thinking about that. Let me know what you're interested in, and I'll let you know how that evolves. Tier 3 will, of course, have everything below that, ad-free episodes, TBD bonus content, but also some sort of special Discord access. So I want all Patreon members to get some sort of Discord badge or emoji so that if you're in the Discord, you will be recognized as a Patreon supporter at any tier. But then also, I think there could be some locked special channel in the Discord server that is exclusive to the third tier Patreon members. And that will be a place where maybe they get first dibs on questions for the guests. Maybe they get first dibs on suggesting topics, or we have some sort of discussion, or maybe they get like early access to episodes in some way. TBD on that. But also, I will continue our tradition of like premium Patreon members will also have their name read and thanked on every single episode. So there will always be like a break in the middle where I will shout out and thank third tier Patreon members. So I'm excited to keep that going. So I think if you are a supporter at the $10 level, I will lower that to $8, but you'll still get the same sort of maximum perks from that. And as these tiers kind of evolve and shift, like if you want to change or update your contribution level, that whatever it is, that whatever works for you. And then the other thing I did want to explain and mention is that the show is new. The show is different. And if you were subscribed financially or just as a listener, because there was something about Allie and Lindsay, or Allie and Jen, or Allie, Lindsay, and me as a vibe, as a combo, the show was probably much more silly and dynamic and whatever. If that was the reason you were there, and then maybe you listen to an episode or two of this show, and it's like, you know what? It's just not the same, and it's not for me. It's not the reason I was here. Then, do you. I will not be offended if you decide to change your subscription or unsubscribe, or change your Patreon or unsubscribe to the Patreon. This is a moment where we are transitioning, and you gotta do what's right for you. So I deeply appreciate your support if you continue with this program. And if you gotta bail out and support another creator, a different creator, then that's also great. So I look forward to hopefully meeting and exceeding your expectations of what the show could be, and keeping you around if you so choose. And then the last chunk here that I wanted to talk about is ways to get in touch with me and be part of the community. So, as I said, the Discord remains the same. Patreon remains the same. If you if you're in the Discord community, I hope you will stay and be part of the discussion. And if you're on Patreon, you can always message through the Patreon as a subscriber, and I will receive all of those messages as emails and respond to them directly. But we also have a new it's me. I don't know why I'm saying we, but I also made a new email account. And here's what I'll say about the internet in 2024. It's very hard to get the Gmail address that you want because everything is taken. So influence@gmail, obviously taken. influencepod@gmail, taken. influencepodcast@gmail, taken. I could not figure out a sensible email address that was not already taken. And I don't want to create a website and do like Matt@influencepodcast. Like there's only so many hours in the day, especially if I'm making a video version. That's time consuming. So here's what happened. Okay. The new email address for this audio video program is influencepod69 @gmail.com. That email address again, influencepod69 @gmail.com. I will put that in the show notes. I'll put that in the description of every video, every episode, so you don't have to remember that. But if you want to reach me, suggest a guest, tell me that what you like and dislike about the show. Tell me I'm unsubscribing, this show sucks. influencepod69 @gmail.com. It's all happening. The voicemail number remains the same. I need to record a new voicemail message, so I'm making a note of that. But it was always, in addition to like getting awesome guests on the show and having a good time, the best part of talking with you is hanging out in the Discord, truly, but also getting voicemails from you that we could play on the show. You could ask questions of upcoming guests. You could talk about things that we talked about previously on the show, or just like share dumb, silly shit or suggest topics, whatever it is. The voicemail number, as always, is 347-871-6548. 347-871-6548, or as you probably know it, 347-871-6-LIT. That number will be in the show notes of every episode and every video, so you do not have to remember it. But I do hope that you will call in and just hang. It's a voicemail only number. It's a Google Voice, so there is no way, there is no phone that will ring. No one will pick up the phone. Don't be shy. Don't be nervous. I will just get an email that says there's a voicemail, and then I'll check it out, and then I can incorporate it onto the show. You can also text that number. So if you prefer to just send a text message instead of an email or instead of a voicemail, that's also great, and I will read those and share those on the show as well. I guess that's it. I just wrote out a bunch of notes here, and I guess what I'm saying is, like, if you're already here and you're already a listener and you're already subscribed, I hope you'll stay put and enjoy the new show. And the only ask I have of you is, like, hop on over to the YouTube channel, the brand new YouTube channel, youtube.com/@influencepodcast, and just subscribe. Even if you don't plan to watch the video version, getting me to 1,000 subscribers is the way to, like, kind of kick everything off. And I would really appreciate your help in that. And, for all your other sort of influence needs, check the show notes for all the places to get in touch and be part of the community. Let me know what you think. Give me a shout in any of these ways. I'd love to hear from you. And I look forward to continuing the show and continuing the conversation with you. And I hope you'll stick with me. And I don't know. That's it. I'm pretty jazzed about this new theme music. So I'm gonna play it for you now, and I'm gonna get out of here. And I have some pretty cool guests booked. I have some pretty cool guests that I'm reaching out to. But if there is a person or people that you are obsessed with on the internet, you listen, you watch every single thing they make, you're like, yes, the new thing, the new episode, the new video is out. I want to know what that is for you, and I want to get them on the show for you and interview them, ask them, learn. I want to learn about them. I want to get into their stuff, and then ask them all the questions and ask them your questions. So if there's someone internet famous that you love, that you feel like you'd love to get to know through this show, email, Discord, voicemail, all the things. YouTube comment. You can comment on the YouTube videos now, and I'll see that too. Whatever it is. Get in touch. This show is made by me, but also by you, all of us. So maybe I am saying we as a community. Thanks for being with us for 7 freaking years. And I hope you'll be with me for 7 more. If we get there, if we get that far, or, who knows what's going to happen in the next year, I'm in New York. We had a fucking earthquake last week, which, was crazy. So, who knows? Time's short. Get on into the Discord, subscribe, and let's do something. Let's make something. For now, here's the new music, and I kind of like it. It's got a cool bass groove. So subscribe, and I'll see you later. Bye.